All right, Larry Krueger with a little reaction to the 49ers losing to the Houston Texans in Houston. Ugly game, man. 26-15. Well, a couple things. First of all, the 49ers are going up against a defense that averages 14 points, 14 points a game. That's what the Texans give up. They give up 14 a game, and they gave up 15 to the Niners. So, in a way, the Niners did exactly what I thought they were going to do offensively, which was struggle against this Texans offense or defense much of the day. But when you watched it up close, it was even more disillusioning just because, it's like there was nothing. The 49ers couldn't run. McCaffrey averaged 3-1 a carry. Robinson got no carries. The Niners couldn't sustain any drives. They couldn't keep any continuity going at all. They couldn't stay on the field. Mac Jones was harassed and harangued and hurried all day. He was sacked twice. He was hit half dozen times. Colt McKivitz had a particularly rough day going up against Will Anderson. Will Anderson was just awesome today and just absolutely kicked butt. So Anderson dominated McKivitz. The Texans defensive line totally dominated the 49ers. The Texan corners totally dominated the Niner receivers. There was no separation at all. Jennings, Bourne, Kittle, McCaffrey, Jordan Watkins, Demarcus Robinson, Juszczyk, Tongas, Sky Moore, they all were involved, but nobody got any real separation. So the Niners didn't get separation. They couldn't block up front, and Jones had no time. So offensively, the Niners were in a pickle for sure. But I think the thing that really stands out was that this Houston offense was so bad against Seattle just the other day. And that was, now they have no Nico Mannion. They've got CJ Stroud, a bad rookie, bad line, a bunch of rookies, Woody Marks, Jalen Noel, Jaden Higgins, and they just couldn't stop anybody. The coverage was way, way, way too soft. I'm not disappointed that the 49ers lost to the Texans. I'm disappointed that the 49ers defense didn't even challenge the Texans. That was an embarrassing effort from the 49er defense, I thought. Just from the standpoint of you're not going to challenge Xavier Hutchinson, Jalen Noel, and Jaden Higgins. You're not going to, get really tight on the coverage and dare those kind of young receivers and unproven receivers to run by you, especially when Stroud's operating behind a bad line. It's like Niners should have been absolutely all over those receivers and just daring those Stroud to beat them deep. They should have absolutely hugged up on every one of those receivers, manhandled them, and fought them at the line of scrimmage, and challenged them every step. And instead, they laid back in soft zones and allowed completion after completion after completion in front of them. I think, CJ Stroud completed like 80% of his passes in the first half of the game. So coverage was way, way, way too soft. Now, with no Bosa and no Huff, where was the pass rush going to come from? And we asked that question all week. When we talked about it, we talked about potential trades, but we never talked about the reality of Sunday, which is that the Niners don't have any more pass rush. Who can rush the passer? The 49ers got 0 sacks. I don't think they even got close to a sack. The defensive ends that played, Trevis Gibson played. He had 1 tackle, no sacks. Who else? Mikael Williams, 3 tackles, no sacks. Mikael Williams looked particularly slow, coming just wired to block. Sam Aquinu went out with a left ankle injury. He had 3 tackles, no sacks. Robert Beal had 5 tackles, which is good for him, but no sacks. That's it. That's it. They absolutely did nothing on their defensive line. Jordan Elliott went down with an injury. What I wasn't expecting was I wasn't expecting Houston's offensive line to look good against the Niners. I wasn't expecting Woody Marks to run for almost 6 yards a carry. I wasn't expecting Xavier Hutchinson, Jalen Noel, and Jaden Higgins and Braxton Berrios to beat the 49er defensive backs, but that's what we saw. Houston put up 26 points on this 49er defense. They never stopped them. Long drive after long drive after long drive. I mean, it was amazing watching the Texans just drive the ball all day. They just played absolute keep away from the 49ers from start to finish. I mean, that was probably the ugliest part of this thing is the fact that the 49ers could not they couldn't get off the field, but then they also they couldn't score points, but I mean, more than anything, they couldn't get off the field on defense. And it was just terrible. I mean, the first drive, 16 plays, 9 minutes and 39 seconds. And the coverage, I mean, the pass rush, he had all day to throw on several third downs. And the numbers showed in the pregame that if Houston got into 3rd and 5 and less, they were second in the league at converting third downs and staying on the field. When Houston got to 3rd and 5 or more, they were 32nd, dead last in the NFL at converting, and they got into manageable thirds most of the day. They really did. On the first drive, though, there was a 3rd and 11 from the 47, and Stroud threw to Berrios, and the Niners just horrible tackling by Jair Brown, and he got 14 yards out of it. 14 yards on 3rd and 11. So the tackling was bad. It really was. Woody Marks, they made him look really, really good. They sat back in a soft zone and let Stroud get hot. He went 7 of 9 on the first drive, and 16 plays though on the first drive. Second drive, 9 plays. Third drive, 10 plays. I mean, the Niners couldn't get off the field. In the second half, Houston, the Niners, to me, where the momentum shifted, the Niners had a little momentum at the end of the first half. Jones threw to George Kittle on a 17-yard touchdown, and the Niners got the 2-point conversion on the pass to, or I guess, no, it wasn't 2-point conversion. That was a 1-point conversion. So that made it 16-7. But a beautiful one-handed catch by Kittle. It could have been a pick. It wasn't. It was literally Mac Jones throwing it into a sea of hands with 3 Houston defenders there. But Kittle made the play, and it's 16-7. And then Demo gets the pick on the interception at the end of the first half. Unfortunately, couldn't get down, so the Niners couldn't get points out of it. But I mean, at that point, you think the Niners have the momentum. They're getting the ball to start the third quarter. Then to begin the third quarter, the kickoff goes out of the landing zone, so the Niners get the ball on their own 40-yard line, and you're like, okay, all right. Your first drive of the third quarter, balls on the 40, good field position. And on first down, Jones throws to Jennings for 6. On 2nd and 4, CMC ran for 1 yard. Will Anderson and EJ Speed made the tackle, led to a 3rd and 3. And on that 3rd and 3 from the 47, Will Anderson beat McKivitz bad and hit Jones. He almost hit almost knocked out Trent Williams because he hit Jones and the whole thing fell into Trent Williams' knee. But incomplete pass, and the Niners were forced to punt. So, I mean, that was a huge momentum turn right there for the 49ers. They had the positive momentum. And then on the punt, they downed it. Saron Neal downed it on the 5-yard line or the 6-yard line. And you're thinking, okay, momentum still with the 49ers. They got the momentum. And then on the next drive, CJ Stroud took them from their 6-yard line. And there was a first down play from their own 20. And Nick Chubb just had the worst tackling I think I've ever seen. Should have been tackled for a loss. Instead, he gets 5 yards on first down. So instead of 2nd and 10 or 2nd and 11, it's 2nd and 5. And then he runs on 2nd and 5. Gifford stuffs him. So he gets no yards. So he gets to 3rd and 5. And then Stroud throws this perfect pass to Hutchinson for a first down, and they stay on the field. And then later on the same drive, it's 3rd and 9, and Stroud finds Dalton Schultz, and Mustafa just takes a bad angle, and they convert, and it's another first down, and they're moving down the field. And they get to 3rd and 7, and Stroud throws to Hutchinson for a 30-yard touchdown and burns Jair Brown and Malik Mustafa on a looked like an over pattern, 22-7. And it's like at that point, you're like, it's 12 plays, 94-yard drive. It's 23-7. And that was Houston's 4th 10-plus play offensive drive of the day. And to me, that was the ball game right there. Niners had a little momentum coming out of the locker room. And then McKivitz gives up the big sack on the 3rd down. They punt the ball back to Houston. They look like they're burying Houston inside their 10. And then Houston drives, 94 yards for a touchdown coming through on 2 big third downs. And that was pretty much it. I mean, that was pretty much it right there. 49ers would score to make it 23-15. But, it was those long drives. It was the defense eventually caved. 49er defense played all right initially, but the coverage was still way too soft, and the tackling was too shoddy from the outset. But really, they held early in the red zone, and they forced field goals, and then they just caved late. So there you go. I mean, very, very disappointing football game. D. Winters went out with a knee, Collins with a shoulder, Jordan Elliott with an ankle, Sam O with an ankle. How many of those guys will be ready for the New York Giants? I don't know. But the 49ers don't have a lot of pass rush. They have a very young secondary. If you can't move the quarterback up front, if you can't affect the quarterback up front, he's going to pick apart this young secondary. Even the worst quarterbacks will. Stroud is not the worst quarterback. But he picked them apart pretty good today. So that's on defense. They got to somehow get some rush. They got to get Huff back. They got to find somebody, in a trade. I mean, they got to add a piece at the trade deadline. They need help. I mean, they need help. And then offensively, your line's your line. So they're pretty much stuck with the line they've got. I thought Jones played his ass off. The offense just couldn't sustain anything, but they have no receiver that it scares anybody. I mean, they really should take a look at what their plan is for the next year or two at wide receiver and figure out who's going to be their guys, because you got a mix mosh of guys. Jennings is there, but he looks unhappy, and he doesn't seem like he's the same Jennings. And Bourne is kind of a retread at this point. Jordan Watkins is a rookie with a lot of talent, but he's just getting his feet wet. Demarcus Robinson is a nice middling veteran, but nothing more. Sky Moore's a special teamer. Ricky Pearsall is a good player, but he's hurt all the time. It's like Ayuk was a good player, but what's he going to be coming off this injury? What's his future with the team? What's Jennings' future with the team? So I think they got to really take a look at, wide receiver. Is there a special wide receiver out there they can get? Is there a defensive tackle or defensive end that they can get to affect the quarterback up front? That's what I'd be looking for. Or, any kind of a young, and also no rentals, no draft pick or, no draft pick packages of multiple picks for anybody who's, going to be a free agent at the end of the year. If they trade for anybody, it's got to be somebody that they're going to have this year and into the future. But maybe those players exist, and I do think this team needs the juice that comes with the excitement of a trade. They definitely seem like, with the late bye this year, they seem like they're dragging a little bit. They seem a little gassed. So we shall see some physical games back to back, some really challenging games that we knew this was going to be the challenging portion of the schedule. And most people, when they looked at the schedule at the beginning of the year, had this one as a loss, road game in Houston against the Texans. But I really thought it was winnable, and it definitely was winnable. But the 49er defense just could not do anything. And the 49er offense didn't help the 49er defense. The 49er offense has really helped the 49er defense by playing complementary ball and dominating time of possession. Today, 49er offense did the 49er defense no favors at all. And that combined with the 49er defense without Bosa and Warner was not ready to shoulder that load. It was a very disappointing game. I mean, if you told me if you told me in the pregame Niners were going to score 15, I would have said, yeah, sounds about right. Maybe a few points lower than I thought, but I was thinking 17. But the real surprise is that the Texans, who looked horrible offensively last week against Seattle, put up 26, and they had extended drives, and there was no freaking pass rush, and the coverage was soft as tissue paper all day. I mean, it was the least competitive effort I've seen from a 49er defense in a long, long time. They didn't challenge Houston at all, and they need to do some soul searching about what they're about going forward. All right, before we get to Kyle Shanahan, let's hear about our sponsor, Sleeper. 49er football season is presented by Sleeper all season long on the Krug Show. Fastest growing fantasy platform in the world, Sleeper. It's the one-stop shop. You get blazing fast news, real-time stats, group chat, season-long leagues, and, of course, Sleeper picks. For daily fantasy, use promo code Larry, Larry, and Sleeper will match your first deposit up to $100. Links in the description. Terms and conditions do apply. Here is Kyle Shanahan on the loss in Houston.
In a game like this, damage your team's morale, spirit?
I would hope not. I mean, got beat today. Credit to them. They kicked our ass, and we got to take it like men and come back, hopefully a little pissed off, and go to work and play better next week than we did this week.
Was that your message to the team?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's not much to sugarcoat there. And I was real disappointed in how we looked for all 4 quarters. First half was unacceptable, and second half didn't get much better. So not much to say about it, except that we'll look it on the plane and figure out all the things that we know we can correct and that we did mess up. But expect the guys to come in tomorrow with a chip on their shoulder, ready to get back to work.
Yeah, I mean, the question about the morale, I mean, you show me a room you show me a losing room where the morale's awesome, and I'll show you a room that sucks. I mean, you don't want a room full of guys where the morale's good. You want a bunch of guys who are pissed off. You want guys who the emotions are raw. You want guys that maybe are even chirping a little bit. You want some guys who are frustrated. You want some guys who maybe even be lashing out. Why? Because it shows that they care. I don't want a room full of guys who are just like, yeah, we lost. Oh, well. I want fighters. I want 53 guys who want to fight, because that's what football is. And it's like, if you want to fight, show up and fight. If you don't want to fight, we'll find somebody else who does want to fight. I mean, that's what this thing is. So I don't, the morale, I don't want to hear about the morale. If the morale's good, you got real problems. You just scored 15 points. Your defense got gutted against a really crappy offense. And if your morale is good, if there's a bunch of guys in that room that are like, feeling great, then they got serious problems. If you got good morale after you get beat by 11 to Stroud, Marks, Hutchinson, Knoll, and Higgins, I mean, you seriously, there better be a bunch of guys who are just hacked off on that plane because that's unacceptable. I mean, this offense got absolutely gutted by this defense, but this defense is gutted more than a few teams. But this Houston offense that was just absolutely horrible, 6 days ago, to turn around and basically drive at will, and Stroud's 30 of 39. He's throwing for 300 plus yards. You're not sacking him at all. You're not moving him off the spot at all. Woody Marks is rushing for almost 6 yards a carry. You're getting lit up by Xavier Hutchinson, Jalen Knoll, Jaden Higgins. You're not challenging any of them. I mean, Braxton Berrios was thrown 5 balls. He caught 5 balls. Woody Marks was thrown 4 balls. He caught 4 balls. Jalen Knoll was thrown 6 balls. He caught 5. Xavier Hutchinson was thrown 6 balls. He caught 5. I mean, where are the incompletions? Where's the pushback? Where's the defense? And I think I think Robert Saleh was probably asking himself that question watching this game. Let's hear about the defense from Shanahan's perspective. Here's what he had to say about his beleaguered defense.
A little bit of everything. I mean, it wasn't good enough at all in all three phases. Special teams played the best, but I thought we struggled to tackle, struggled to get a rush. Thought we made too many mistakes in the secondary on some of our zone dogs, and felt like we didn't challenge them enough in man either. So a little bit of everything.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree with that more. I think he said that perfectly. Everything that he said there was absolutely spot on accurate. Didn't challenge him enough in man, didn't hug up enough, didn't, I mean, what are you doing? You got to know you're down in distance. You got to know your opponent. If you're playing Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, then don't hug up on them because they're going to burn you down the field all day, all night. But if you're playing Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel and Xavier Hutchinson and guys that are strength challenged and experience challenged, you got all the spin, all the athleticism, all the experience, and you laid back and allowed Stroud to just play pitch and catch with these guys. I mean, the lack of competitive fire in the coverage was unacceptable. That was the worst part about it, but it's every phase. And, I'll say this on the tackling. When teams don't tackle well, generally that means that they're pretty fatigued. So I think there's a possibility that that's what's part of what's going on here as well. The 49ers defense is really dog tired. They've had to really kind of step up collectively with no Bosa, no Fred, and they've probably expended more energy than they normally would have. And there's just guys looking gassed, and they looked really tired. And I don't know if it's the travel, the hitting, the schedule, whatever, the rest. I don't know, but they look tired. They literally didn't make tackles today. There were times where the defensive line had great penetration and kept Marks or Chubb in the backfield, and then just nobody wrapped up, and they just kept going. And it's like, dude, tackle. You got to tackle. You got to tackle. The tackling was poor. The coverage was soft. The pass rush was nil, and it's a bad trio of, of factors when you mix it all together. You mix all that up, and it's a crappy defensive effort. Here's Shanahan on the reality that the 49ers face coming out of this game.
Based on what happened with defensively last week, it was like, hey, maybe against all odds, you guys can overcome no Bosa, no Warner. Is it, I don't know, in some ways a reality check of you've got to have, those type of players, on the field. There's going to be a big guy.
I mean, our reality is pretty realistic on what we deal with every week. So we knew we had a tough game versus Atlanta, and we felt we had a tough game today. So all those things, you guys can write about that stuff. But, yeah, it's definitely harder when you lose really good players. But we've had that situation throughout this year, and all I want us to do is play as good as we can play, and then you can deal with whatever. And today we didn't play as good as we could play.
Yeah. I mean, you're never going to go into a game going, hey, man, we're worried. But I'm sure that privately, Kyle Shanahan's thinking the same thing that I'm thinking, which is how are they going to speed up CJ Stroud? Seattle did, but Leonard Williams is on their line, and Boye Mafe, and they've got some edge rushers, and they got some talent up front. I mean, Seattle hurried him up, but how are you going to do it without Huff? You don't have much up front, and you're going to have even less going forward because they just lost Sam O, it sounds like. So, so I'm sure Shanahan was thinking, how are we going to speed this guy up? How are our young DBs going to hold up, period? And, the fact that they played kind of soft coverage, I wanted to see them I wanted to see them with the opposite game plan. I wanted to see them challenge these guys. This was one of my keys to the game, which was the Niners have to come out and super challenge these Texan receivers because they're not that great. They're not that experienced. They're not that in tune with Stroud. They don't like physicality. And instead they didn't hit any of these guys at all, ever. They were very soft with them. They sat in soft zones. When they did play man to man, they were just like running up and down the field with them. They weren't really they didn't feel the 49ers physicality at all, and it showed. You got to make a bunch of young players like that feel the physicality of your football team, and they just didn't. And then Stroud sat back there, and he's a pro quarterback, man. If you give him, easy reads, and he can just sit there and play pitch and catch, he'll do it. He'll do it, and that's what he did. And then that and the explosives. I mean, you got to limit up teams' explosives. The 49ers gave up explosives all day, all day. Now, is that the lack of Fred, broken plays? It's probably a case-by-case basis, but too many explosives on defense, not enough explosives on offense. Just overall, the defense should have been hyper physical with these guys and muscled them. Didn't. The defense should have been hyper competitive and challenged these guys. Didn't. And the 49er offense got it rolling a little bit and kept the thing close, but this game had to be won, 21-10. And instead you gave up 26. That ain't cutting it. Let's hear from Mac Jones. Mac Jones, I think, continues to play really inspiring football. He did throw an interception in the fourth quarter to Jennings there at the end, and he talked about it afterwards.
Juwan one there at the end. They got intercepted. Just what was the thought there, and what kind of
I mean, they jumped on the goal line. They jumped a double slant, like whatever when we were backed up, and then I asked for it, and Kyle and I were talking about it, and Juwan just got kind of banged up on the play before, so it's unfortunate. I don't think that was neither of our faults. Like I was going to throw that 10 times out of 10, and he usually comes up with it majority of the time. So just a good play by the DB, and that guy's been playing well all year, number 4. So he just made a good play.
Just one-on-one, and you want to take your shot.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, Jones was throwing some 50-50 balls up, and he put one up to Jennings late. Now, Jennings had made an amazing catch earlier, but this one was picked by Kamari Lassiter, and as he said, Lassiter's having a good year. Lassiter's a good player. Good corner, got great sight on the ball. Ball had a bunch of loft to it. It was basically a, who's going to jump for it. And Lassiter went up and got it and took it away. So good play by Lassiter. It's a low percentage throw for sure by Jones, but it's a throw you got to make, and he made it. Let's hear from Jones again. He talked a little bit about, watching this game. I mean, basically, Jones and the offense were just sitting there. They couldn't get a first down. 49ers didn't get any first downs. I mean, it was ridiculous. The halftime stats, Houston had 14 first downs. The Niners had 2. Halftime, Houston had 45 plays. The Niners had 14. Halftime, Houston had 299 total yards. The Niners had 65. 235 pass yards for Houston, 44 for the Niners. 24-31 time of possession to 5 minutes and 24 seconds at halftime. I mean, the fact that it was 16-7 was just luck. This game, the Niners lost this game, and people will be like, well, hey, this and that. Don't let anybody tell you that this game was close, because this game was not as close as the score indicated. 26-15. It was lucky. Could have easily have been 35-7. But let's hear Jones talk about watching this game on the sideline and basically sitting while losing the time of possession battle just decisively.
Right, when you're on the sideline for as long as you guys were, having possession is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
I guess what are the emotions as you kind of wait?
Honestly, just stick to my process, prepare, do my stretching, and stay warm, and whether it's long drives or not. But I feel bad for the defense because we didn't give them, when you're out there for that many plays, it's hard to just play. You get tired, and even if we just get a couple first downs, it gives some pressure off them. So got to be better there. Obviously want to score points, but even just moving the ball and flipping the field can be good. Thought we did that better in the second half, but obviously got to put points up to beat people. So, like I said, try to get to the fourth quarter, and really our defense has come up clutch in those situations, and so has our offense. So most every game we've been in the fourth quarter, and we've won.
Yeah, some weeks you win with your offense. Some weeks you win with your defense. This week you knew it was going to be a rough go for the 49er offense against this really good Texans defense that gives up 14 points a game. So you knew the defense was going to have to do their job. But the offense has a big hand in that by maintaining some form and some semblance of balance. And the Niners didn't do that. They couldn't convert first downs. The defense held in the red zone initially. And then eventually they caved. And, with no Warner, there were some communication breakdowns. Though Bethune did have 14 tackles. But they miss Warner badly. They miss Bosa even worse. They couldn't put any pressure on the quarterback, and pressure's the name of the game. In fact, let's look at a key stat here, because to me this is one of the key stats when you think about this game and how this game went, and just to take a look at this. 49ers loss against the Texans starts and ends with the defensive line. And this is from Kev. He put this out, and pressuring the quarterback. Mac Jones was pressured on 18 snaps, half of his dropbacks. And when he was under pressure, he went 4 of 13 for 64 yards and a pick. So Niners offensive line could not keep him upright, and he was pressured a ton. And you saw what he did when he was pressured. Stroud, on the other hand, was not pressured. He was pressured at a season low of 21.4% of his dropbacks, despite the 49ers blitzing a season high 33.3% of the dropbacks. Saleh had blitzed about 20% this year. In this game, with no Huff, no Warner, no Bosa, no Warner, he blitzed 33.3% of the dropbacks. And when the Niners didn't blitz, the 49ers only produced a 7.1% pressure rate. So, I mean, they just couldn't produce. They could not produce any pressure at all with their front four at all. And when they blitzed, it was only 7.1% pressure rate. So it's just that's not getting it done. So there you go. I mean, it's how important it's a rush and cover game in the NFL. It's very much a passing game in today's NFL. You got to pass to win, and you got to pass protect. And they couldn't pass protect for Jones, and he was under pressure a lot. And you see those numbers when he was under pressure: 4 of 13, 64 yards and a pick. And they needed to somehow sell out to pressure Stroud. And so they did. Saleh did. He blitzed way more than he normally blitzed. He knew he had to have pressure. He didn't sit back in zones all day, but they let him get in, especially in the first quarter. They let him get into a rhythm. The coverage was too soft early on. They allowed CJ Stroud to get into a rhythm. If you watched him the other night against Seattle, you knew how important those first series were going to be to establish that, you were going to take away all the underneath stuff and make him be accurate down the field and make him throw it over your head. And the Niners didn't. The Niners allowed him at home with his home crowd to settle in very nicely. And then they kept giving the ball back to him. So he didn't feel any real pressure. He didn't feel any pressure on the scoreboard. He didn't feel any pressure from the 49er defense. And then I'm sure he started feeling good once the Niners started blitzing all the time. And it's like, hey. And then all of a sudden, all we needed is a few runs here or there and a few short passes behind the blitz, and we're going to win this game. Sure enough, that's the way it happened. Terrible tackling by the 49ers, soft coverage early on. That's really what stood out in this game that I wasn't expecting to see. I really thought Niners are going to challenge these receivers, and they didn't. So that was really, that was unfortunate. And I thought the game plan, I can't believe the game plan was sit back, be conservative, play soft zones, and just don't bend but don't break. I mean, if that was the plan, that's a really bad plan, because this quarterback wasn't in rhythm and you allowed him to establish rhythm. The much better plan was, hey, we're faster than them. We're tougher than them, especially with these rookies receivers. Let's muscle them. Let's challenge them. Let's force them to throw the ball over our heads. And maybe we'll give up a quick touchdown, but we won't give up long extended drives, and we'll still protect our defense. Instead, it was a soft deal. They get dominated in the time of possession, and once that happened, their chances of coming back in the second half were pretty much nil, because you just didn't have a fresh enough defense at that point. Those long extended drives, you'll pay for them in the second half. All right, there you go. A full breakdown of everything that happened in Ninerland. We should tell you 49er football season presented by Sleeper, the fastest growing fantasy platform in the world. It's a one-stop shop. You get blazing fast news, real-time stats, group chats, season-long leagues, and, of course, Sleeper picks for daily fantasy. Use promo code Larry. Sleeper will match your first deposit up to $100. Links in the description. Terms and conditions do apply. And thanks, of course, to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of the Krug Show. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. And thanks to all of you guys for supporting the Krug Show on YouTube.